Good evening or morning, as the case may be, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to this special presentation about some insights about the nature of conditioning. Thank you all for joining me, and I hope you'll enjoy this tonight. I'm Tom Stone, and creator of Integrateness Optimizing, the Pure Awareness Techniques, the Freedom Practice, etc., etc. So what I'm going to be doing, I don't have any PowerPoint or anything like that. What I wanted to do this evening is to share with you some insights about the nature of conditioning, how conditioning occurs, and how we can best remove the limiting influences of conditioning. And some of this is going to be review for some of you because you already know many of the basics of how this happens. But I've got some detail to share with you, and I hope you'll enjoy it. So let's see if I can set up my view just a little bit more interestingly. Yeah, there we go. And I can see all of you. And I'm going to put speaker view. There we go. Now I can see everybody. Okay, so the thing about conditioning is that conditioning can either be positive and useful, or it can be not useful. And the reality is that most people live the majority of their life, some people pretty much all their life, as the product of their conditioning. Now, useful conditioning is, we could maybe make a statement about the nature of conditioning itself. What is conditioning? Conditioning means doing something over and over and over again until you can do it without even thinking about it. So for example, learning to play a piece on the piano is a form of conditioning. And to learn how to walk is a form of conditioning. How to eat with chopsticks, or a fork for that matter. All kinds of things that we learn and do that are quite useful are forms of conditioning. Why do we do it? We do it, it's just something that happens automatically from repeating doing the same thing over and over and over again. Riding a bike, et cetera, et cetera. Speaking a particular language, learning a new language, all of these things are forms of conditioning. Now, conditioning is useful when you do it and something positive and helpful to your life is occurring. However, there's also not useful conditioning. And some of the most insidious and difficult issues to work on in one's life come from not useful conditioning. Most of that happens, or a lot of that originates in our pre-verbal time, the time when we're so little that we don't know how to even speak yet. And so that kind of conditioning has some interesting, limiting, and even damaging, energy draining aspects to it. And it's mainly that kind of conditioning that I'm going to be talking about this evening, because these are the things that very significantly limit people's ability to live and enjoy pure awareness all the time. And we know that that's what we're after. That's a good idea to be in that state. But many of the forms of conditioning are extremely insidious. The very fact that conditioning produces an effect where you no longer have to think about what it is that you're doing. It just happens automatically. This can be actually very problematic. And what I want to do tonight is to show you how that conditioning occurs, and of course, what we can do about it. So when I originally created this model, this was back in, I think about 2000, 2001, around that time. And I had just met Thomas Leonard, the founder of the ICF, International Coach Federation, also founder of Coachville, Coach U, large coach training organizations. And he had hired me as his coach. And the original Venn diagram, which is 3 overlapping ovals, actually the template for that I got from him. Not the content of it, but just the structure. In any case, he passed away before I developed the whole core dynamics model. The original chart that I used was called the Core Dynamics of Human Conditioning. And later, when I was in China, I changed it to the 12 Causes of Human Problems. It was just better for translation in Chinese. So I'm going to show you how the whole thing works. I'm going to first explain it, and then I'm going to show you on charts. And the way it works is that when we're little, as you well know, we get traumatized. And one of the main reasons we get traumatized is that we don't have an enormous amount of hardware for processing emotional energy. In fact, the number of spindle cells, you've probably seen me show that chart. I'm not going to bring it up right now, but there's a chart that shows the number of brain spindle cells in the brain of a 7-month-old baby or toddler, and compares it with the number of spindle cells in a 70-year-old man. And the 70-year-old man has many, many, many times more spindle cells than the small child. And so what this means is that the emotional processing capacity, at least at the hardware level, is enormously more for an adult than for a small child. What this means is that the innate ability to process emotional experiences is much higher as an adult than it is as a kid. So when we're a kid, it's more easy to get traumatized, because when you have an intense emotional experience and you don't have the ability to process the whole thing, what you do is you put some of it off for later with the idea, I'll finish it later. And that's not even this conscious idea. It's just a result of having so many emotionally overwhelming experiences when we're little. So it starts by having traumas. And there are 12 basic ones I'll be showing you in a moment. And these traumas form the basis of 12 very fundamental fears. And the fears occur because it's pretty simple. We don't want to have those kind of traumas happening again. And so we do our best to avoid them. And the whole cycle, the whole phenomena of attempting to not feel things starts. And this causes the accumulation of lots and lots of incomplete experiences. Now, out of the fears, we develop the fundamental conditioning of the 12 causes of human problems. And these took many, many years to discover, lots and lots of kind of persistent research. And it was specialized kind of research. What I was doing was when I would have sessions with people, after I'd learned kinesiology and I started working using an earlier system, what happened was I would help people and they would get sometimes pretty good results, but other times what would happen is they didn't fully get the real result that I was looking for, or they'd get a result and then something would come back. And so I could tell that I wasn't quite getting to what was really needed in order to solve the problem. So I started to add into my protocol. I had a protocol somewhat similar to the one we use now. And at the point where you're finding the barriers to actualizing the intention, what I did was to find the barrier, test if in fact that barrier was there. And if it was, I would have an additional inquiry, an additional question, which was, we need to go deeper. And if I got a yes, this was a major motivator to see if I could figure out what the heck was really going on. And so I would use my intuition, I'd talk with the client. Sometimes I'd maybe read something or do some other kind of research. And gradually, I started to hit on deeper insights about the nature of what these barriers to our intentions are really like. And these deeper insights kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I said, well, my gosh, is there any end to this? And in fact, there was an end, because I finally started to reach the deepest level of the causes of human problems. And that's exactly what I was looking for. Because you know how it is, you give a session, you want to help the person really, really resolve the problem. And if you aren't deep enough, if you aren't at the root of it, then that issue is going to come back, sometimes come back in spades. So I started to hit on these insights where I need to go deeper, and this was like in-person arm muscle test, and need to go deeper, and I'd get a no. When I got a no, I realized, okay, this is as deep as it gets. Now, out of the conditioning, we develop a whole myriad of habits, and these habits become the main thing, the main way that people relate in the world. Whether it's in relationship, whether it's in career, whether it's in health, whether it's in communication, whatever area of life they're functioning in, if they're functioning merely out of habits, then this creates an enormous limitation of what people can do. And people, because it's conditioning, and the aspect of the conditioning is unconscious, you're not aware that you're being habitual, this becomes a very tricky issue for people to address in their life. So let me just talk a little bit more about this whole nature of conditioning. Like, the development of conditioning has kind of phases to it. Let's say you're a little kid and you don't know how to tie your shoes. Okay? You can't tie your shoes. Somebody has to tie them for you. So somebody ties your shoes and you look on in amazement that this can be done, and you're kind of motivated to see if you can do it. So at that point, you can't do it. And before you get that curiosity about attempting to do it, you don't know that you can't do it. So this is unconscious incompetence. That's the first stage. You don't know you can't do it. Okay. So then you give it a try. You get inspired, you get motivated, you want to do it yourself. So you give it a try and you try your best, and you can't tie your friggin' shoes. Okay. Even if somebody shows you how to do it, you go through a period where you just simply can't do it. So this now becomes conscious incompetence. You now know that you can't do it, okay? But you're a warrior, you're persistent, and so you keep trying and you keep failing. And over and over again, you have these experiences of you can't do it and you know you can't do it, okay? Conscious incompetence. So you keep working on it, and finally you're able to do it. Finally, you can tie your shoes. But it takes every ounce of your concentration and focus. This is not a state where you're not thinking about it. This is a state where you're really thinking about it, like as much as you can. And finally, you can do it. So this becomes conscious competence, but it takes every bit of your focus, every bit of your attention in order to do it. Okay? Think about learning how to ride a bike. When you first try it, and falling down, skinning your knees, whatever. But finally, when you get it, you can do it, but you really have to focus on doing it. Okay? Same thing with tying the shoes. You're successful at tying the shoes, but it takes all your attention and focus to get it done. Conscious competence. So you keep going, you do it more and more and more and more. And pretty soon you create a state in which you have the intention to tie your shoes. It just happens. It happens virtually without thinking about it. You don't have to think, oh, you put this loop over this one and you go like that. No, just it's done. This becomes unconscious competence. So this is the progression, how it works. Does it make sense? Anybody have any questions about that part so far? Okay.
Hello, Tom.
Hey, Veronique. Hi.
Hello. I don't understand the word. What are you talking about? Confidence, competence?
Well, competence. Competence means a skill, something you can do. You're good at. You're good at it. Yeah. So it starts out that you don't know that you don't know. Okay.
Right.
And then you get to the place where you know that you don't know.
Yeah.
And then you get to the place where you know that you know. And interestingly enough, the final stage of it is where you become unconscious of that you can do it. It becomes kind of automatic. Does it make sense now?
Very much sense. Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions about up till this stage? No.
Tom,
Okay.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please. Go ahead, Trish.
With the unconscious competence, is there just something you can add to it because it's just not fully sticking? I'm kind of getting it, what you just said.
Sure.
The unconscious competence is that something you can do, but it's automatic. Did I understand that correctly?
I think you got it pretty close to right. I mean, think about it this way, Trish. Walking, okay?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, we all go through this period where we can't do it, Yeah, just crawling, and then finally you get so you can walk, but you really have to, maybe you really have to be careful with it, and then, maybe hold on to the chair or the bed or whatever's nearby in order to do it. But eventually you get so you can walk and you're not even thinking about it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Very good. Anybody else? Questions? This is a fascinating topic because it's so central to what this whole topic of the causes of human problems. So now what I want to do is I want to, let's see, I want to do this. Okay, what I'm going to do is to screen share now, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you about this. Okay, so this chart is called the 12 causes of human problems. And this is the result of the earlier stages that I was mentioning before about the traumas and the, hold on one sec. Yeah, we're recording. That's just what I wanted. Okay, so going back to the screen share. So this is the final result of the conditioning and the fears. And when the fears occur again and again and again, then we finally get our way of being incorporates these 12 different processes or forms of conditioning. Now, I want to go to the next part, and there's a web page about this on the Integrateness Global website. And here you see useful conditioning, walking, eating, speaking, typing, playing a musical instrument, etc., driving a car, all that kind of stuff. And the not useful conditioning are the things that are on this this particular chart. They have attachment, longing, suppression and avoidance, thinking that need is love, resisting change, limiting self-expression, suppression and avoidance, ignoring your intuition, being judgmental and avoiding the present, attachment, sense of self from a world, getting a sense of yourself from your worldview, living in your stories and expectations and reactions. Now, why is it that we have these particular ones? I'm going to show you how it works. So it starts off, as I was saying, with the traumas. Let's scroll properly. Here we go. The 12 traumas. Screen's being a little finicky. So here we have the 12 traumas. Now, you'll notice that the central three, feeling isolated, feeling lonely, or feeling pain, these are the three basic traumas. Now, why is it three? Okay. The reason it's three is that when pure awareness manifests as something, it always manifests with three fundamental elements to it. This was a fascinating insight. And this is also something that's clearly understood and available in the Vedic knowledge, which you guys know I'm extremely fond of. So what happens is, whenever we have an experience, I'm going to just come off of the screen share for a moment. So whenever we have an experience, it always has three fundamental components to it. And this is really the understanding of the source of problems, the source of problems in human life. And that is, there are always three parts. There's the experiencer, that's you who's experiencing. There's the object of experience, which can be anything. It can be a perception of something. It can be a thought. It can be a feeling. Any actual thing that we experience. We have the experiencer and we have the object of experience. And there's a bunch of sites on the internet that talk about non-duality. Well, the reality is what we're looking for is non-trinity, not duality, because they're missing one element that's very important. And that is that we always have the experiencer and the object of experience, but we also have the process of connecting the two together, the process of experiencing. Okay, that's the third one. And that's why we have on our lovely little Venn diagram here, that's why we have three different things. The experiencer is this side over on the left. The object of experience is on the right, and the pain experience is the one on the bottom. That's the process of experiencing. So when these things are in balance and they're just expressions of pure awareness, you don't have the problem. Okay? But when we become identified with the experiencer, or identified with some object of experience which we feel is we need, like it's something that's missing, and we become identified with it, feeling like it's a part of ourself. Or when we become identified with our very young child's capacity to feel things, which is very limited, then we get these traumas. Okay? In fact, the traumas happening over and over and over again is what gradually causes the conditioning that makes us unconscious that this is happening. Now, what happens is when we're identified with the experiencer, we have experiences where we feel separate from everything else. This creates what are called illusions of separateness. And this all happens through the mechanism of identification. We become overly identified, actually almost any level of being identified with being the doer, being the experiencer, being the knower. And when we have that happen, then we have a sense of separateness from everything. And so we end up feeling ostracized, sometimes shocked, sometimes desperate. These are some of the traumatic experiences that we have as a result of being overly identified with being the doer, being the experiencer. Over on the right side, we have loneliness or being lonely, which also expresses itself in the three fundamental ways of being disappointed, vulnerable, or abandoned. And why does this occur? This occurs because when we're in the womb, in our mother's womb, we don't have any experience of separation or needs for that matter. In fact, every need, when we have it, it's met so instantaneously through the umbilical cord or through just being in the amniotic fluid. Everything that we would consider to be a need, it gets fulfilled so instantly, so automatically, that we don't experience what a need is. It's just need, fulfillment of the need, like instant. So when we don't experience what a need is, the problem hasn't really developed yet. But when we come out of the womb and the umbilical cord is cut, now we start to have a gap between the, let me just come back to here for a second. We start to have a gap between the need, and then we start to cry. Somebody comes, tries to figure it out. Let's see, needs diaper change, needs food, needs warmth, needs to be turned over, whatever. Okay. And when they figure out the need and we get the need met, then, whew, okay, now we're okay. But in the meantime, we've got this sort of traumas. Come back to the screen share here. Yeah, we've got the traumas of feeling disappointed, vulnerable, abandoned, hurt, wounded, betrayed, desperate, shocked, ostracized. These are the 12, and the isolated, lonely, and pain. These are the 3 central ones. So these 3 central ones represent what happens to our experiencer, our object of experience, and our process of experiencing. This is why it's 3, and this is why it doesn't get deeper than this. Deeper than this is pure awareness. Any questions about that? Now, because most people are living their life as the product of their conditioning, we can see why that happens. It's because this stuff becomes unconscious, and we're just acting as the product of our conditioning and don't realize that that's even happening. The
Tom?
next, yeah, go ahead.
It's Kim.
Hey, Kim.
I'm just, hi. It's just interesting, just the idea that 12 items, like 12 items, a dozen items could sort of contain the whole range of the human trauma experience. It's just interesting to me because my default in my mind is to think that there are just countless things that would contribute. So to come to that is sort of interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
And if it's true, then the implications for it are pretty massive.
Well, the reality is that you're actually right, that there's pretty much, I wouldn't say limitless, but there's a plethora of variations on these things, okay? So we have the 3 central ones, but that doesn't cover the whole picture. Then we have the 3 expressions of each of them, which gives a total of 12, okay? And then there are plenty more, but we can't fit them on the page. and in fact, there are, I wouldn't say limitless, but there are an enormous number of variations of these things. Right?
Yes.
And based on the traumas, let's take a look at the next chart about the fears. And it's interesting that in this trauma picture, the most central one is the pain one, okay? Because this occurs when you get emotionally overwhelmed. You start to become identified with the small child's limited capacity to feel things. And you start to become identified with the phenomena of getting emotionally overwhelmed. And so you get deeply conditioned to start to fear that that's going to happen again. So here are the 12 fears. And because you're identified with being the doer and the experiencer, you're basically identified with your ego. Okay? And what happens is you have the experience of not getting what you think you want over and over and over again. And so this has to do with this generates the fear of being open to new experiences. It develops the fear of uncertainty, and it develops the fear of losing a sense of control. Now, control is an illusion to begin with, but when you get this sense of feeling like you're going to lose control, then all of these produce, all these are generating of fears caused by these guys, caused by the traumas. In the original version of all this stuff, I didn't have all these 5 different charts I'm going to be showing you here. We just had one chart, and that chart was the nature of the conditioning. Slightly different language or words were used for it. The new version is a little bit different. In the original version was called the 12 core dynamics of human conditioning. And then later when I developed, actually even before I developed this model, started to call it the 12 causes of human problems. And as I mentioned, what I was looking for throughout all this was the answer to the question, what are the deepest causes of human problems? And that's because I wanted, when I worked with people, I wanted to get to the real energies that are causing that stuff. And if you don't get to the real root cause of something, then you may get some result, a positive result from doing a session with somebody, but you don't necessarily really solve the problem in a thorough and permanent way. Okay? So at the fears level, if we look at the one on the right, this is the one where we originally called this in the original Venn diagram of the causes of, I'm sorry, the 12 core dynamics of human conditioning. We originally called this one on the right, looking for yourself where you are not, okay? Because people would become identified with various objects of experience. And by that, I mean, if you had a need for something, you see this one up here, this is the fear of not getting your needs met. This one is very powerful, very common, because when you don't get a need met, that's traumatic. What kind of trauma is it? It's the trauma of being disappointed. It's the main thing. And this is the result of the fear of not getting it. It results in the fear that your needs are not going to get met. Because when a need doesn't get met, or it takes way too long to get the need met, then that's traumatic. And it then causes us to fear that it's going to happen again. So that's where the fears come from. So this is the fear of separation. This is the fear of not feeling whole and complete. Right? So it results in not getting your needs met. It results in a change and instability. You fear change and instability. You don't want things to change. You want something reliable, something you can count on, something that's just always there. And in the lack of the experience of pure awareness, what people do is they latch on to things that appear to be stable. It just means they've been around for a long time. And so you're under the illusion that they're really, truly stable. But there's nothing in relative creation in the world. There's nothing that lasts forever. The only thing that lasts forever is pure awareness. The only thing. Everything else has some kind of life cycle to it. It's created, it's maintained, and then it's dissolved. So when someone is doing a process in a session, and for example, they're doing an in technique, and they just are taking forever, and you talk with them about it, and they say, it just doesn't change. I can't seem to get past a certain level of it. Well, this is this dynamic of resisting change or fearing change or just not being able to get to the real true root cause of the problem. And then there's a fear of isolation and abandonment. And this is one where you have some project or something you want to do, start a new business, or write a book or do something like that, and you just can't seem to get it done. And that's because you have a fear that if you do it, you're going to be very powerfully self-expressed. And this is going to put it in other people's face that they're playing small. They're playing a game, so it's called Let's All Stay Mediocre Together. But if you start to be powerfully self-expressed and not be fearful of people pulling away from you, then you get this dynamic. And the one down here, the fear of overwhelm, everybody's got that because we get overwhelmed so many times when we're little. Right? And this results in the fear of punishment and confrontation. It results in not being willing to see the truth about things so that you can actually face them and deal with them. And it also causes the feeling of deep pain. Okay, so this is the 12 fears. And the 12 fears result in, actually, they result in the conditioning, which is the one back here. Yeah. The fears result in the conditioning because they happen over and over and over again. And so we start operating in a state of being. For example, over on the left, we form the deep habit or deep conditioning of being attached to things. We want things to be our way. So we create expectations and we convince ourselves that things are going to happen in the way that we want. Right? And the result of that is we become attached to something that only exists in the mind, not anywhere else. And you'll see attachment is here. If we scroll down to the fears, come on. It's not scrolling very easily for some reason. You see, we have the fear of uncertainty, the fear of not getting what you think you want. Get the idea? All right. So we're going to come down here further, 12 habits. So when we are deeply conditioned to resist feeling things fully, we know what that does. It develops the habit of suppressing our emotions. And that causes us to doubt ourselves. We start having doubts, we stop trusting our intuition, and we have lots and lots of ego, emotional pain-based thoughts, which are thoughts of doubting. Right? This also creates the habit of being judgmental. If we look back on the core dynamics model, this one is being judgmental. And that's caused by the habit of projecting the problem as being over there on the other guy. It's that person's problem. We think it's over there. We want to push the problem over there so we don't have to deal with and experience the emotional pain that's there at the basis of that. And this also generates the habit of avoidance. And this is where addiction lives. Every addiction is a form of attempting to self-medicate so you don't feel pain. So whenever it tests that it's this one, this is pretty much always that there's some deeper emotional pain that you've been avoiding. That's also true of the habit of projecting. They're slightly different. This one causes you to be judgmental. This one causes you to be addicted. Okay? So this is the 12 habits. Now, when all the traumas, fears, conditioning, and habits are all resolved by doing the freedom practice, by doing IGO sessions, and you've cleaned up your inner emotional landscape, all of this stuff is all caused by unresolved disruptive emotions, all of it. And that's fascinating because what happens is when all this stuff is gone, we get what are called the 12 freedoms. There they are. And the 12 freedoms, the central three are clarity, being whole and complete, and knowing. Knowing is different than thinking. Thinking is coming out of conditioned response. Knowing is experiencing what's coming even though you're not proximate to it yet, you experience it as a little ways off or long ways off in time and space. You're not to it yet, but it already actually exists. Whereas when you're thinking and you're making stuff up, this only exists in the mind, not in reality. So let's go from the left here. Clarity is what you get when you don't get lost to the identification of being the doer or the experiencer or the knower. You have the clarity that you are whole and complete, which is the one over here on the right, and that you don't actually collapse into the illusion of thinking that those expectations you've been creating are part of reality, that they're actually going to come true. And the reality is they can't. They can't because they only exist in your mind, not in reality. Okay? So this results in a kind of inner stability. It allows you to be able to live in the moment. You know, there's lots of spiritual teachers who talk about being present, living in the moment. In fact, The Power of Now, you know, Eckhart Tolle's book, that's all about being in the moment. And it results in peace of mind. And when you have peace of mind, you don't need to create expectations because you don't need anything. You feel completely fine, you have a peace of mind. Over on the right side, we have the being whole and complete. This means that you don't feel like you need something outside yourself in order to feel fulfilled, in order to feel whole, complete, satisfied, so forth. And this results in self-sufficiency. It results in adaptability. You're no longer resisting change or fighting against things changing. It's like you're not trying to hold on to something to get a sense of stability because you already have it. You're grounded in pure awareness, and pure awareness is the only truly stable reference that it's possible to have. This also results in you being able to express your inner greatness and not hold back, because you're not concerned that if you're really powerfully self-expressed, that people are going to pull away from you and leave you kind of abandoned. There's this illusion that it's lonely at the top. The reality is when you're powerfully self-expressed, you just make new friends and you hang out with other people who are also powerfully self-expressed. Then down here we have knowing. Knowing is completely different than thinking. And the analogy I've used for many, many years, it's like if you've never tasted a strawberry and somebody tried, all of us tried to explain to you what a strawberry tastes like, we could talk all day. Would you know what a strawberry tastes like from the description of the taste? Sweet, juicy, tart, little seeds, sometimes they get stuck in your teeth, whatever. You would not know what a strawberry tastes like until you take a bite. Once you actually taste it, then you experientially know what the taste of a strawberry is. If you haven't done that, you don't know. All you have is intellectual understanding, which is not the same thing as knowing. And this is a very powerful distinction. This is the distinction that gives us the difference between thinking and knowing. In this sense, we're using thinking to mean those thoughts that you have that you're making up in your mind. Whereas knowing is your intuitive thoughts. When you have an intuitive thought, I call it remembering the future. You've heard me use that term. That means you're experiencing something that does in fact exist, and you're going to either experience it or come very close to experiencing. You're going to know it through the direct contact with it, the direct experience of it. This results in successful actions. And you see it in the quotes of famous people. They all say, all of them say that their success is due to being able to trust and act on their intuition. This is what leads to successful actions. Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Albert Einstein, you know, everybody who's famous and has accomplished great things, they all have quotes about trusting their intuition being the key to their success. There's also, because you can be fully present and experience anything, not get overwhelmed by it, you can see things as they really are, rather than being caught in the illusion that there's something else, some fantasized thing that you're making up, pardon me. And now you can be fully present because you don't have to escape into some form of self-medication in order to in order to not feel the emotional pain. When you're really fully awake and your inner emotional landscape is cleaned up, you can be so present that you experience everything, and you experience it far more richly, far more thoroughly, far more powerfully than you ever did prior to that. Okay, so that's the basic sequence of how things happen. Starts with the traumas, that leads to the fears, that fears happen over and over and over and over again. And so we start to get deeply conditioned to function based on those fears. And then we develop all kinds of habitual ways of being based on that. That's our 12 habits. And when all this is resolved by doing what we do, which is to complete the incomplete experiences and extract ourselves from the identifications, that's what the How technique is about, then the result is we have these 12 freedoms. Okay, any questions about any of that? It was really cool for me when the model evolved from just one diagram of the conditioning, which I had way back in like 2001, I developed that.
Tom,
Yes.
can I just check my understanding on all this?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, because especially since I don't remember ever hearing this whole concept of the experiencer, the object of experience, and the process of experience as a kind of structure to it.
Yeah.
So,
Can you turn your
Yeah.
video on so we can see you?
oh,
Great, thanks, Nancy. Go ahead.
yeah.
Nice to see you.
Okay. So, the whole kind of premise is that sometimes we're kind of in the mode that we are the actor in the world, the experiencer. Sometimes we're kind of in the mode that we are being acted upon, kind of, and
Actually, that's just a subset of being the experiencer. Because when you're being acted upon, you're experiencing something happening to you. But if you're taking the action, you're also experiencing something that's happening to you. All the things where you're experiencing that something is happening to you, those are all aspects of being identified with being the experiencer.
Okay, so how would you describe the experiencing being the object of experience?
The one on the right side, yeah.
Yes.
That's because it's like I was explaining. You're in the womb, you don't need anything, okay, because every need is so automatically met. Okay? Then you come out and you have the experience of having now a gap between having a need and having the need met. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that gap is what starts to produce when the need gets met in a reasonable amount of time. In other words, you're not stuck in it in the need for a long time. Then it's like, okay, you settle down, everything's okay. But if it goes on for who knows how long, it's going to vary in length to produce this effect for different people. But if it goes on too long, it means you're sitting there going, I'm famous for that, by the way. And what's happening is you're longing for the need to be met, and you're desperate for the need to be met. And it feels, here's the problem. This is why it's considered to be the experience, the object of experience. Okay, and that is that you were in mom's belly for 9 months. Okay? It's like you were one with her, okay? Literally. Okay? Now you come out, the umbilical cord's cut, now you got a separate body, but you don't instantly feel self-sufficient. Far from it. Okay? You keep feeling completely dependent. You can't do anything for yourself. So you got two phenomena. One is you're deeply identified with mom from being inside of her for 9 months. And the other thing is you can't do anything for yourself. You can't even turn over.
Right.
You can't stand up in a crib, put your fists on your hips and say, Mom, you're not meeting my needs. You don't have language. You don't have the ability to stand up. You don't have any of that. Okay? All you have is this state of being in which you have a need. It's not getting met. You can't help yourself. You can't do it. And you have this deep identification with mom, so deep that the phenomena of getting your needs met feels by mom, it feels like it's missing from you because you had become so identified with it that when it's not there, it feels like part of you is missing. And when you feel like part of you is missing, this is. So I remember when I got this insight. This was so cool. I was in so it was one of the states in the South. I think it was maybe Alabama or something. I was there by invitation. I'd been brought there. It was actually a pretty good consulting gig. They paid me pretty well. But I was there, and this was an office where they had like a couple dozen therapists, psychotherapists. Right? Mm-hmm. And I was giving pro bono sessions to the therapists just to get them, educated and interested in what was going on, because I was also working with some of their clients, on tough cases that they had. And the director of the clinic asked for a private session with me. So I said, sure. So I was giving him this session, and he had grown up in an environment where and this is true for pretty much everybody, but he was a really classic case of it. And it was in this case that I got this insight about this whole dynamic on the right. Okay? And what had happened was somebody did something, quote, bad, okay? And up to that point, he had been just sort of worshiping his father, his parents, like God, which, kids do, because that's sort of how it is. And so this worshiping of it has a kind of like security feeling about it. It's like, oh, I can count, because they provide you with everything: food, clothing, housing, everything. In a good situation, they provide you with the proper attention, love, all that kind of stuff. In lousy situations, not quite the same thing, right? So what happens is that now somebody does something, and this happened to this guy, and by the way, he was having a lot of trouble managing all the therapists. Okay, he couldn't be really forthright and honest with them. Was having real trouble with that, and so he, it was kind of a free-for-all in a way. Right? So he was wanting to solve that problem. That's why we were having the session. So it was caused by somebody did something and he got blamed for it, even though he didn't do it. And because he got blamed for it, his father came down on him. He got punished. He got, and I'm talking about traumas. What a trauma to have God turn against you.
Right.
It's like there's something you didn't even do.
Right.
Yeah. And so what does that cause? That causes this breakdown of the feeling of connectedness, and trust. The trust gets obliterated, right? And so then you develop this fear that your need for things like love, attention, acceptance, approval, all that kind of stuff, you develop the fear that you're not going to get that. And it's really shocking. I mean, talk about trauma. This is a deep kind of trauma. And what that causes you to do is to long for being able to get that sense of being taken care of, everything being okay, feeling fulfilled by having what you need. And what it feels like is that aspect of you that has been taking care of your needs, you feel like that part of you is missing. That's because you were identified. This guy was so identified with dad, and his approval. That make sense?
Yes, I was just trying to literally make make it so it's clear the words are associated with that concept, because I thought it was very interesting, the whole concept of the three things: the experience or the object of experience, and the experience itself, the process
process of
um,
experiencing, right,
of
right.
experiencing. It's a common kind of threesome that does appear in other things. But anyway, but I wanted to know, I wanted to kind of understand where, why you associated like the word isolated with experiencer, and why you chose lonely for the object of experience, etc. And I felt it, the one about the experiencer actually kind of stands pretty clear from the words to me,
Right.
anyway. I mean,
Right.
basically the important words are the three main words, and then the other things are kind of offshoots.
The other things,
Right.
the other things are like the three fundamental expressions of
Right.
the central one, right?
Yes,
Now,
yes.
what
the-
it doesn't show on the diagram is that this results in a whole plethora of habits. Okay, we get those 12 main habits, but they're, of course, as we we're talking about with Kim's question, tons of them.
Sure, and I get that. The expression of the main concept is encapsulated in those three.
That's right.
So and pain, I can certainly see as the actual the process of experiencing. That makes sense to me.
When it's limited. That's right. That's right.
Now what you say with the lonely, that makes sense with your whole defining of object of experience as this kind of feeling that you're separated
That's right. That's
from
something
what
missing.
is.
Yeah, it feels something's missing.
Yeah. I would, so expressing that as the object of experience, I guess that at this point is the missing link connecting object of experience with the feeling of being separated from the whole or whatever.
Right, right. So object of experience means that in this particular case, like when I was giving the story about working with this director of this psychology clinic, is that he had been used to feeling okay, like taken care of, appreciated, accepted, acknowledged. Okay, he'd been, particularly from his father. Okay, he was very connected with his father, and when it happened that his father disapproved of him and didn't believe him that he didn't do it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Then what happened was the object of experience wasn't his father. The object of experience in this case was that he had become identified with feeling like his needs are always going to get met. And that phenomena of getting his need for being accepted, approved of, all that stuff he just all of a sudden didn't get, okay? That his experience of that stuff, he'd become identified with it, feeling like he was doing it. Even though he was getting it from outside of himself, it felt like, how to say it? Basically, when it got lost, it didn't feel like, oh, Dad's disapproving with me. Well, that's okay. That's his problem. I'm fine. It wasn't like that. It was like, oh my God, an essential thing that I need isn't available anymore. And that is, I need to be approved of. I need to be accepted. I need to be trusted and believed in. Okay? And if I don't get that, I'm at this terrible loss. Okay? And the feeling is I'm losing something that's a part of me. Because when I am when I do feel trusted, believed in, safe, when I do feel all those things, it's in the ultimate state, it's because that's just my natural state of being. Right? But when I have to go looking for it from dad and I'm not getting it, okay, then I feel like something's missing. So when you're self-sufficient, when you're independent, when you're so grounded in the experience of yourself, so grounded in pure awareness that you don't need that from anybody, okay, then you feel whole and complete.
Yes, well, all that makes sense. It's just the labeling of that as object of experience.
Yeah, that's
that I
because
was,
when we talk about it as a subject, object, and connecting link, experience or object of experience and the connecting link of experiencing, when we talk about it in those terms, this is like the kind of pure essence of what's going on, okay? And then when we talk about it in its more expressed forms, like the outer three and so on, and this is when the language becomes much more connected to our experiences, okay, like what we experience.
Mhm. Okay, and just one more question. So you also talk about we're trying to rise above Trinity, as opposed to non-duality, non-Trinity. We're trying. The aim is non-Trinity in a way. So do you see? I mean, how I was picturing in my mind the 12 freedoms is that once as a whole, looking at it as a whole, it's kind of jumping out of the Trinity, but also in another way you could look at it is transforming each of the three elements into a higher thing.
That's right. It all has to do with identification, Nancy. Because
right, so you no longer identify. Right. Yes.
That's okay. Exactly it. Yeah. And that's exactly what we're doing in our work, is we're extracting people from their identifications. Now, whether the identification comes from projecting a possible negative outcome onto the future, or creating an expectation and then getting completely bummed out when it doesn't get met, okay?
Right.
Or whether it comes from some traumatic experience. Okay? Typically, one of the beauties of this new way of presenting this whole model with these stages to it is that, you're working with someone and it tests that they're doing longing, okay, or looking for yourself where you're not in the old language terms, okay? Well, what does that mean? That means you're afraid that your needs are not going to get met. Well, where does that fear come from? It comes from being traumatized by your fears not getting met. I mean, by your needs not getting met, sorry, by your needs not. When you're traumatized because you don't get a need met and you're feeling desperate to have it happen, then you develop this fear that it's going to happen again. It's like completely reasonable. It's understandable, but it's caused by being identified with that thing that feels like it's missing, which is the need for approval, acceptance, appreciation, love, etc. By that not getting met, that's caused by the identification with the phenomena of needs getting met seeming to be a part of you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, as you can see why, it took me years of very specialized research to get these insights. And each time I would get one, I would say, oh my God, wow. Incredible, And so when I got that with this particular guy at this clinic, the director of the clinic, and I didn't have a chance to follow up with him, see how he was doing with being able to manage his people, but I could tell that he now had the capacity to do that because he didn't need for them to accept him, to believe him. Okay, he could start to manage from what he just knew was the right stuff to do.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
And that's what people want. They want to not have to rely on somebody else to make them feel okay.
Right.
You want to feel whole and complete and just fine, like all the time, no matter what other people think.
Right.
Cool. Great. Thank you for the question. Very, very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Anybody else? Any questions about it so far?
I have a question, Tom, that's a little less specific, maybe. You've mentioned Tom Leonard or
Thomas Leonard, yeah,
Thomas Leonard,
yeah,
and he had been steeped in coaching, sort of. He was already the coach of the coaches, and you became sort of the coach of the coach of the coaches, right?
that's right, that's right.
So, and I've heard you mention many times that what he said to you was that you had the cleanest energy sort of anybody that he'd met, meaning
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there didn't seem to be anything clinging to you, that you talk about the state that we're talking about. Essentially what he was saying is you sort of exemplified this particular state more
Yeah.
than anybody he encountered, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So with what he knew about what he'd been doing, creating all these coaching organizations, what was the elemental something that was something that he didn't have that you brought?
Yeah, yeah. What he didn't have was one of the other things he said, in addition to the clean energy, he also said that I had a deeper understanding of human dynamics than anybody he'd ever met.
Yes,
And that's what this model is about. Okay.
yes,
And what it means is that there are certain mechanics involved at the root of every problem. And what we want to understand is what is the real root of the problem and how to solve it. Because if we solve it in a more superficial way, we get a more superficial result.
yeah,
And that means it keeps coming back or it doesn't get fully solved. And that's what I was experiencing, in my practice that I had started. Well, it was a different system I was using, but it's where I learned kinesiology. This happened I learned the kinesiology, all this stuff, right before I got shot. The 3 seminars were September, October, and November. I got shot in December.
oh wow,
Yeah. And so it was fortunate that I had gotten the muscle testing, because then I was able to use it to support my healing process. Yeah.
right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, Thomas was a very interesting guy. It was so interesting that he died. So he died like in something like February after that. Like it was just a few, I only knew him for a few months.
Wow.
And I'm quite sure that he didn't die due to my coaching.
I think that's a fair bet.
He was doing a lot of running, hiking and running. And he had hiked something like 17 miles that day. And he came home and got in bed and had a heart attack and died. And yeah, it was very interesting. He had already requested that I be the keynote speaker at the annual Coachville conference. So I was, and I did speak to hundreds of coaches, and a whole bunch of them got involved with this work back then. It was quite a amazing experience to have all that happen.
Mhm.
So so one of the conversations that he and I had very early on, after first coaching session or two, is we were talking about that great coaching comes from great people.
Yes.
It's not about learning coaching techniques and getting good at the techniques. Right? It's about being someone who is great. Okay. The problem is that up until now, to become great, people don't even know how to do that, because they have no clue about their conditioning being present. They have no clue how to identify it, how to resolve it, how to get to the energies that are causing it. Right?
Mhm.
And I just happen to have the extremely great good fortune of discovering that stuff. Now, it took getting shot in the chest to figure it out.
Mhm.
Not a technique I'd recommend.
No, but I mean, to your credit, there's a lot of people that got shot in the chest in their lives, but didn't particularly come up with this either.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's not just a natural consequence of getting shot.
No.
It's because I have a particular attribute in my Vedic astrology chart, my recent article.
Yeah.
about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I have an extremely strong Mercury, and Mercury is all about cognition, communication. Okay, so this ability that I have to explain subtle, complex things in a simple, easy way for people to understand, that's due to that particular aspect of my
That's-
chart. It's fascinating.
It's like a sweet spot of your abilities.
It's yeah, one of them. Yeah. Thanks, Kim. That's great.
Thank you.
Good. Wonderful. Any other questions? This is great. Wonderful discussion. So to be fully honest and forthright about this, I wanted to have this class in order to give you enough of the foundational information about this whole phenomena of these 12 causes of human problems that you really understand it. So if you want to make a decision regarding taking that upcoming course, that you'd really have a basis for being able to understand it. And so part of what I want to do is I want to give a demo session to people where I'll walk you through the process of muscle testing from the one of the charts, one or more of the charts, so you can see how the whole process works. Okay? It's phenomenal. When I got this set of insights, this transformed my coaching into being so powerful, so incredibly powerful. It's like when you follow the protocol and you know this system of the 12 causes of human problems, it's virtually impossible to not get a breakthrough. And so that meant every session I gave, I'd get like a major breakthrough with everybody, virtually every time. Now that's great coaching. And it's right along the lines of what we're talking about with Thomas, is that that's what leads you to being a great person. Or rather, you could say, that's what allows you to be a great person, which then results in great coaching. Does it make sense?
Maybe you could elaborate just a little more.
Sure, sure. So all the famous people in the world, okay, all of the super successful people, they all have quotes about the main thing that got them there was to trust and follow their intuition.
Yes.
And what is your intuition? Your intuition is your knowing. It's that aspect of you where you can allow yourself to feel everything. And by virtue of feeling everything, you have the direct experience of things. You don't have the fallback position of avoiding the feeling and then going to your intellect to try and figure it out. Because all that gives you is just intellectual understanding. It doesn't give you the real know. You don't know what the strawberry tastes like. So in order to truly know something, you have to experience it. You noticed? Yeah, when you think you know, and then you actually have the experience, there's this like, OMG, that's what it is. Yeah. And then 6 months later, you have an even deeper experience. You say, oh, now I really understand it. Yeah. So
You're
fascinating phenomenon.
like learning to swim in the library and then actually being introduced to the pool later.
Beautiful example. Exactly that. Exactly that. Great. Thank you. Good. Who else? Okay, so I want to go ahead and you can put your video on now for a few moments, if you will. And what I want to do is to do a demo session with somebody and demonstrate exactly how we use this model to get to the real deepest cause of the problem. So who's got something that they've had trouble solving for a long time? Okay. Veronique is raising her hand. Trish has turned her video on. Nancy's there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Kim's there. So let's see, optimal person for this process. Remember, we have our one rule in this work, test everything. So I'm going to test who would be the optimal person for the demo. Okay. And that's going to be Veronique. Yeah, she had her hand up first. That's because she knew. Okay, let's get this set up so we can see her properly. We're going to replace the pin. Yeah. And we're gonna get me on board. Here's me and replace the pin, right? So we want this and we're gonna add a pin. There we go. So now we have Veronique and me on the screen. This is good, okay? So I'm going to take her through a session, and when it gets to the point where we're going to find the barriers, okay, we know the steps of the protocol. You've got it. If you haven't got it printed out, that document where it walks you through the steps of the protocol, it's really great to have that printed out and right where you're working, so that you can just check and follow down the list. So when we get to the stage where we're finding the barriers and we want to make sure that we get the real true root cause of the problem, then we're going to go to those 5 diagrams, actually the 4, the freedom ones is the result of clearing up the other 4. So we're going to go to those 4 and we're going to test which one is the most relevant or the most useful as an expression of the way in which we've gotten lost to some illusion of separateness from our true self. Okay? Because when we reestablish that connection by removing the barrier to it being connected, then we've got a solution that's permanent, that's thorough, and that lasts. Okay? So that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so Veronique, what would you like to have be better in your life?
Yeah, there is a thing that I have, I think quite often really great ideas, but I never ever bring any of them really into like setting up, like doing a laughter class or meditation or yeah, really yeah, set up a business or really
I get it. I completely get it.
Yeah.
So, so what is it that you'd like to have happen? Let's get your intention clarified. First, I check from the core dynamics model. This issue is at the awareness level. And so it's an appropriate methodology to use the pure awareness techniques and the IGO protocol to solve this problem. Yes, there's an even better way. No, that's the cross-checking, right? Everybody get that? Okay, so go ahead. How's it you'd like things to be instead of the way they are?
I love to, when I have an idea which makes me excited and I share it with people and they're excited, that I also bring this idea into flourishing.
Right. So if you were to state that in a positive way, as if it already existed, that attribute, how would you word it?
I even have a hard time to figure
Well,
out.
you've been experiencing it not working for so long that it's actually a little difficult to start to formulate it.
It's some part of me is I can hardly believe to like set up my business. It's easy for me to bring my ideas, bring them into the world, or how do you say that?
So if you did something like, I easily and successfully manifest my creative ideas.
I love that.
Write it down. Write it down. Easily and successfully manifest my creative ideas.
I have my pen. My pen went away. There it is.
Actually, let's do it in a slightly different wording and say, my creative ideas are easily and successfully manifested. That takes it out of you being the doer.
My creative ideas are manifesting.
Are easily and successfully manifested. Anybody else who wants to follow along, you're welcome to. You can piggyback on Veronique's intention. Okay, now the reason we're writing it down, having it formulated like this, is so that we can test it now, muscle test it, and then we can also do that when we come back after we've cleared the barriers. Okay, okay, so, and you know, I've been doing this so long and I know this so well. I know exactly what's happening with you. And I know exactly how to fix it. I don't have to go look at the charts, but I'm going to show you guys the charts and I'm going to show you my process of how I determine that. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So now I'm going to screen share. We have the optimal intention for Veronique. Yeah. Could be even better. No, good. Okay. Just cross-checking. Good. So we come over here to our model and we want to determine which one of these diagrams we need. Okay. And the best place for us to start is with the traumas, no. With the fears, yes. So when you can't get your projects, let me just stop the share here from you. See this feeling isolation and abandonment? See that one? What I'm doing, I'm sorry, I'm so used to doing this. I've got the conditioning of being unconsciously competent at it, and I need to back up to consciously competent so I can share it with you. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So what happens is I identified that the best language or the best expression of this causes of human problems is going to come from the 12 fears chart. Okay. Now, the 12 fears are caused by the 12 traumas. So you get abandoned and you develop the fear that you're going to feel isolated and abandoned. Okay. And this is one of the expressions of the fear of being separate from something, separate from yourself, not feeling whole and complete. Okay. So now I'm going to just come away from the share for a moment. Now, when that happens, you don't feel whole and complete. Now, you are intrinsically whole and complete. You're naturally whole and complete, but it doesn't feel like it because of this, where's the missing part of me? Okay. Okay. And that's how it feels. So when this is the case, we're going to test it on 2 levels. I'll come back to the screen share for a second. Okay. We're going to test it on the level of the separation, which is because you don't feel whole and complete. See, being whole and complete is the state of being we want to be in. And you would feel whole and complete if you were expressing your inner greatness successfully without holding back and your projects were actually coming into fruition. The projects being successful, getting the business started or whatever it happens to be, is just one of the expressions of you living in a state where you are whole and complete and you don't need any sense of connection or approval or anything from anybody else. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so here we are on the 12 fears. This is the fear of isolation and abandonment, and I just muscle tested for that. Okay. All right, so I want you to say, and I'm going to test for you, okay? I want you to say, first of all, say your intention, the one you wrote down.
Okay.
And I'm going to just muscle test that again.
I started writing and going through my notes and papers. Right now, nothing.
This was my creative ideas manifest easily and successfully.
My creative ideas manifest easily and successfully.
Right, and at the moment, you're not fully resonating with that, getting a weak response from the muscle test. Again, that's an indication that, yeah, you want that, but it's not happening. Okay. Now, the reason you can want that is because that is in your future. That ability to have that happen already exists. You're just not proximate to it in time and space yet. Right? It's coming. When you have a desire, when you have an intention, when you have an intuition, you've all had the experience, I'm sure, of you have a desire for something, and then maybe you just kind of forget about it and you don't do anything to bring it about. And what happens is at a certain point, it just shows up, like without doing anything. You've had that experience, right? Everybody's,
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Everybody's had that experience. Wouldn't it be cool to have that happen all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is what we're after, right? Okay,
Mhm.
the reason it doesn't is because you've got all kinds of ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts, and the energies that create those, that's there in your overall composite experience, right? And that's why we have the freedom practice to clean that stuff up. And we have the IGO protocol to clean that stuff up, which is what we're following today.
Mhm.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test specifically for this particular dynamic. If we come back to the screen share and we're looking at this feeling of being isolated and abandoned. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. What we're going to do now is to test for being whole and complete. Because as I was just saying, you are intrinsically whole and complete, but it doesn't feel like it because of this deep conditioning of the longing to try and get something that's going to make you feel whole and complete. Get something from the outside that's going to make you feel whole and complete. Like that guy who was running the psychology clinic wanted, desperately needed to be approved of, particularly by his father. Right? And he didn't have it. So he didn't feel whole and complete. And as a result, he couldn't manage his clinic.
All right.
Yeah. So what I want you to do is to say, I am intrinsically whole and complete. Intrinsically means naturally, right?
I am intrinsically whole and complete.
Now you are, okay? Now I want you to say, I experience and enjoy this consistently.
I
I
say it
enjoy
again.
I enjoy and experience this consistently.
I enjoy and experience this consistently.
Now that's weak. So you are whole and complete, but it doesn't feel like you're whole and complete. So what
Yeah.
do? You go chasing after things that you think are going to make you whole and complete.
All right.
Very classic experience of this is people, someone who's single, okay? You meet some guy and he's really hot, okay? And you really want to hang out, you want to go with him, you want to start a relationship with him, okay?
Right.
Now, inside your intuition is saying to you, don't go there. But you're so desperate to have the relationship, okay, that you just, oh, shut up, intuition, go away. I mean, you don't say that, but that's what you do, as you ignore it. And then 6 months later, it's a total disaster.
Uh-huh.
Why? Because this guy had the very issues that your parents had that kept them from giving you the love that you didn't get. And you desperately want that love. And so your feeling is, oh, this guy's perfect. I can fix him, and then he's going to give me the love that I want. Good luck.
Right. That will never happen.
Yeah. You get the idea? And so
Yeah.
you're looking for something outside of yourself that you think is going to make you feel whole and complete.
Right.
And the weird thing is, you're already whole and complete.
And of course, the question what raises up right now is it with this the process we're doing with the inner wholeness? You can feel all the time whole and complete.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can reach the state where the pure awareness is. You see, the only thing that makes you truly whole and complete is being one with yourself.
Yeah.
And being one with yourself means being one with your true self, not some made up identification, not some self-definition. It's not a self-definition. It's the true nature of yourself. That's why when you're living in pure awareness all the time, okay, you feel whole and complete. You don't feel any needs. You don't feel a need for anything.
You also probably won't feel triggered by something.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, it's wonderful.
I can believe that.
I've been
Yeah.
having the experience of living in that since midsummer of 1997. So I've been living in it for 20, 25 years.
Yeah, it's your nature.
Yeah, it's my nature. And that's what Thomas Leonard meant when he met me. He said,
Yeah.
this guy's got the cleanest energy of anybody I've ever met. That's because I was living in that, and he could just sense it. Right?
Mhm.
And he wanted that. That's why he was,
Yeah,
and that's why
course.
me with zero coach training, zero, never took a coach training class of any kind. And here I'm getting hired by the coach and becoming the coach of the coach of the coaches. That's the way I like to
Well,
see it too, Kim.
meant to be.
Huh?
Meant to be.
Yeah, meant to be. It was destined. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now, when you don't feel whole and complete, that in terms of getting your needs met, let's go back to the diagrams, and you'll see that here, even in the fears, there's the fear of not getting your needs met. What's one of your needs? You have a need to feel connected to people. You have a feeling of being able to be approved of, liked by people. So you're trying to write a book, and instead of writing the book, you go to do it, and this fear comes up that, well, what if people don't like my book? What if it doesn't become a bestseller? What if I order 5,000 copies and they sit in the inventory of my garage and I can't sell them, right?
Yeah.
Or even worse, what if people really don't like my ideas in my book and they really object? And they're even public about it, and they write blog posts about it and stuff like that. I'm criticized. Are you going to write the book? Forget it. No way.
Yeah.
Right? Because any of that kind of stuff is going to make you feel what? The fear is going to be fear of being isolated and abandoned. Making sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what we want to do now is we want to get to the root of what that is. We want to make sure we get to the right energy. And because the fears, we come back here to the fears, because the fears are related to the traumas, okay? The trauma that you had that caused the origin of this whole thing is the feeling of being abandoned, feeling of being alone. It's like another way of expressing is you could say, it's like the fear is that it's going to be, if I'm powerfully self-expressed, you can sense that if you're powerfully self-expressed, people are going to pull away from you. Why? Because you're putting it in their face that they're playing small. When you play big, people don't like that because it reminds them that they're not living up to their true potential.
Right.
And if they're not living up to their true potential, they don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to deal with that. Okay? And so when you're powerfully self-expressed, you have to be so grounded in pure awareness, okay? So grounded in the sense of yourself that you don't need anybody to acknowledge you or accept you or anything like that, to give you accolades or praise you. You don't need any of that. You know that you're totally fine just the way you are. Now imagine if you felt that way, what would be holding you back from your creative projects, your business, creating a business, doing, write a screenplay, whatever. What would hold you back? Nothing.
You're right.
Wouldn't that be cool?
I love to get there, go there, be it.
Well, how about we create a state of being in which you can do that like today?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes,
Totally.
absolutely. Okay. And we can do that. Why? Because we have this model and we have the whole IGO protocol. We have the pure awareness techniques. We've got it all.
Yeah.
All right, fabulous. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to here, and we can see that the problem is that the trauma that you got was being abandoned. And everybody has those kind of experiences. Yeah? I mean, it doesn't mean permanently abandoned, but some kind of experience of abandonment that left you feeling like, oh my God, I need somebody to feel connected to. And if I don't, if people pull away from me, I'm going to be all alone. And it's going to be lonely at the top. But the truth is, it's not lonely at the top. You just change friends and you hang out with other people who are being powerfully self-expressed.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense, huh? And even if you're not hanging out with other people who are powerfully self-expressed, you're just kind of alone in your powerful self-expression, you're so balanced and confident and secure within yourself that you don't need people's approval.
Right,
How cool is that? It's extremely cool.
right.
Yeah, this is the answer to what's been holding you back.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Yes,
Makes a lot of sense, yeah. So what
yes.
we want is to go after the energy that was caused by the original abandonment that's at the root of the fear. It's at the root of the fear of feeling left alone. Like it's like your tribe is outcasting you, pulling away from you. And you can feel that they're gonna pull away. You're not pulling away from them. They're gonna pull away from you because you're making them really damn uncomfortable because you're reminding them that they're in a group called Let's All Stay Mediocre Together.
Mm.
Yeah. You don't want to keep being part of that club.
No.
No way. Okay, great. So what happens is we have to get to the energy of the trauma of having been, quote, abandoned, meaning people have pulled away from you. Happens to everybody. Okay.
Right.
So in your case, now we can test for how many energies there are or barriers there are. Okay. There's one, there's just one. How cool is this? You see, when you get deep enough, you get to the real root of the problem. There's typically, it's very common. There's just one energy there causing the entire problem.
Mm.
This is an in technique energy. Yeah, there's some out technique energy as well that we need to find and deal with. No, just one in technique energy at the heart of this problem. And it's the feeling that if I'm powerfully self-expressed, I'm going to be all alone. You see, even if you do something like write a book, you're concerned that people aren't going to like it, or that they're going to not feel it's good enough. That's a very common aspect of this. Oh, I don't feel worthy. I don't feel good enough, right?
Mhm.
And so that can result in this dynamic of feeling like, oh, people, what do I have to say anyway that people would like? So you can't write it because the fear is people are not going to like it, meaning they're not going to like me.
Mhm.
Okay. Everybody getting it? Any questions so far? Okay, great. Fascinating stuff, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, so we have one traumatic energy, and it's the trauma of having people having pulled away from you and you feeling isolated and abandoned. Everybody's got those experiences. Now, the nice thing is we don't have to go find it cognitively like traditional cognitive therapy. We don't need that. All we need is to get to the energy of that trauma of feeling abandoned. And you know how to do the locate technique. So we'll just do that. You go into the quietness. I'm going to mention it just so people who are watching the video know what we're doing. Okay. So we go into the quietness. By looking off to the side of our thoughts, and we experience that limitless, vast emptiness, quietness that's there. And you've done this numerous times, so you can do it easily, and you get that sense of it. Need a little more of that. Yeah, do it several times. Look off to the side of the thoughts. Notice that vast, empty, silent, quiet background, which is the environment in which our thoughts are occurring. And that environment basically is our awareness. Now, there's nothing in it because it's just awareness being aware of awareness, which is something we don't normally bother to do because there's nothing there. But we're doing it now because being in pure awareness is the perfect foundation for allowing yourself to feel the energy when the body shows it to you, because there's nothing in the way. So just have the thought, and you're going to just have this thought and then just kind of gently drop it into the quietness. And the thought is, body, show me this one critical in technique energy that came from being abandoned, that's causing me to hold back and not be powerfully self-expressed. That's the one we're looking for. And pretty much immediately, the body's going to show you some tight knot or ball of energy held inside somewhere, which is the sensation of the unresolved energy of that abandonment experience you had way back when.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting feeling. I felt it first a little bit under the navel, but the kind of the whole front, but almost I have the feeling it's in my lungs.
Okay.
I also, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of lungs, heart chakra area. Huh?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So this feeling in the chest, whether it's in lungs or not, but this feeling in the chest that Bernie is in touch with now, this is exactly the precise energy we're looking for. Yes. So we do the in technique on this energy. You know how to do that, but I'm just going to walk you through it just for sake of having that on the video. So what you do is you notice that there's a field of energy there. And in the field, there's a place where the energy feels stronger than normal. And what you do is you simply allow yourself to notice that strongest part of the energy field, which is typically in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course you know how to do this, that's fine. So, and you also know that as you allow yourself to just simply notice it, that the noticing of it begins the process of completing the incomplete experience that's been being held there. And as you do that, what happens is as you're completing the incomplete experience, that means the body doesn't have to be generating as much energy to attract your attention because part of it's getting completed. So as it gets softer, is it already getting softer, Ernie?
I almost felt that it was gone, but now I feel it again.
Okay.
Soft. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes this is typically caused by sometimes the traumatic energy being in layers. And that makes sense because you certainly got this trauma more than once.
Mm-hmm.
You got it many times. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you got kind of like a stack of pancakes in there, layers of the trauma. So when one layer is completed and goes away, then it's like the next layer, which kind of could be like right under it in the same location. So, okay, you got more to deal with. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you go ahead and allow yourself to notice the central strongest part of that layer. And as you start to complete that, that one will get softer and another pancake will be digested.
Again, it feels very, very gentle and soft right now.
Yeah. So better is good, completely gone is optimal. So hang in there, stay with it until there's nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
You also know from your experience of doing the in technique that as you get toward the end of completing the incomplete experience, that your experience will change and the energy will start to feel like it's kind of dissipating or vaporizing, or and as you get right near the end, it's kind of like the fog burning off in the morning sun, and it just sort of finally just dissipates. And then you're just experiencing that vast, empty limitlessness of your own awareness without any presence, any remaining presence of energy. And we will have nailed the most important central energy that's been causing you to not manifest your ideas. By the way, when you're working, this is for everybody, when you're working with clients and it's taking a while and you feel impatient, then do freedom practice on the feeling of impatience. I had to do at least three full IGO protocols on impatience for myself some years back. And man, did it help. Now I'm so patient, it even amazes me. You can see that nice big sigh that Veronique just had. And this is either an indication that like a pancake layer of the energy is gone, or it's completely gone. And sometimes when it's completely gone, you kind of doubt or wonder whether it is completely gone, right? And the reason for that is that we're so deeply conditioned to experience our objects of experience as things, that to experience just pure awareness being present with no thing in it, that's not a usual experience for us, particularly in the first period of time when we're learning to do this stuff. Yeah, that was an even bigger sigh, even nicer, more indication of the completion process happening, whether it's totally complete or not. Yeah, it might be. It's like testing, it probably is. Any feeling left, Veronique?
Funny, not really sure. This today, the feeling is so completely different.
Yes, and this is exactly what I was just talking about. Because we're so used to experiencing a thing, when we experience pure awareness just by itself, there's no thing there. And so it's quite common that people have this experience of, did I really complete it? Is there anything still left? Yeah, that's because of this deeply conditioned habit of experiencing things as things. We're not used to just experiencing pure awareness by itself.
No, what I actually mean is that the process of it went in a very gentle, like waves,
Yes, yes. Yeah,
completely different than I experienced it with other processes
previously.
before.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, this is part of
I
the
think
pretty
did
close.
I resolve it? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. Yay! That's quite quickly.
Indeed. Good job.
Yay.
Good job. Okay.
No.
So now we come back to our protocol and we can retest the original intention statement.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I found it. So my creative ideas are easily and successfully manifested.
look at this.
Yeah, I have the same
You can
strong
feel
yes.
it, right? You can feel the difference, right? It's a profound difference.
Wow.
This is
Wow.
this is one of the core barriers that holds people back in their life, and you just resolved it. The reason you could resolve it is we got to the right energy. How do we get to the
Right.
right energy? By testing from this 12 causes of human problems model. So
So
this actually fulfilled my intention when I created this, that we got to the deepest level of the causes of human problems.
yeah, so it's all these, we go back and forward here with all the different the trauma, the 12 freedoms and fears and habits and problems.
Right. And so what you do is you test for which one of the diagrams is going to give you the access to the best or easiest way of being able to deal with it. Now, you may have gotten the email I sent out on Saturday, I think it was. And I remembered after doing that, oh, weekends are not a good time to send out emails, marketing emails, right? Because it took till Monday for somebody to respond.
Ah.
But I wanted to do this class to give you more of an orientation of the power and the value of learning this particular material. When I discovered this stuff and started using it in my practice, it was so mind-blowing. It's like I would always get to the real, true root of the problem, solve it for the person, and I just started getting phenomenal results. And boy, did the word about that spread. I mean, I got really busy. Why do you get busy? Because you're successful. You can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. So in the upcoming course, the 12 causes course, which we're going to start on November 1st, you're going to get detailed explanation of the nature of the conditioning of each one of the 12, right? And you're going to get already worked out intention statements for that particular topic. So it's like handing you the whole picture on a silver platter. It's like, yeah. And this is going to empower your coaching like nobody's business. So I can't help but, highly recommend that everybody go for it, and it'll be phenomenal to empower your coaching process with this ability to get to the true root cause of pretty much any problem. Because if it's not one of the central three, it's going to be one of the 9 expressions, the outer ones, or it's going to be some variation on one of those, which you'll easily be able to intuitively get because you're starting from the right place. Okay, good. So that's that. And if you have an interest in exploring further about the possibility of participating in that class, on the Inner Greatness Global website, I'll just show you where it is. If you go to the website, in this top level menu, you have the articles menu. Okay? Under the articles menu, the very first entry is advanced training. So if you go to advanced training, it's going to say new advanced courses. And there's an explanation about the 12 causes of human problems and the dates of when that's going to happen. Oh, there's a mistake there. I didn't finish. Oh, I'll have to go in and correct that right after the class. The 6 and 7 are not on November 1st. They're later in November. Okay? And it's 7 full classes. The reason there are 7 is we're going to take 2 of the traumas, fears, conditioning habits. We're going to take 2 of those per class. Okay, and we're going to understand the nature of conditioning, exactly how to find it, work with it, and how to resolve it. Okay. And then we'll have 1 additional class as a kind of summing up class. So there'll be 7 different classes. We'll cover all 12 core dynamics. We'll do demonstrations of all of them. You're going to know how to do this, know how to work with it. Okay. Now, because this involves quite a lot of my time and effort, and I've been so actually generous with these deep discounts on our extraordinary coach training, keeping it at just $497. So I'm charging a little bit to help, cover my time costs and stuff like that. Then there's also, there's also the Extraordinary Relationships Program. This is very cool. And that's going to be right after doing the 12 causes of human problems. So we can use the 12 causes information as we're working on improving the relationships. And that course has this kind of a schedule. There'll be 9 classes because we have 14 different, sorry about that, don't need that. We have 14 different aspects of relationship. These are the 14. Can you see it okay?
Mhm.
Yeah. So eliminating resentments, being able to stay present even when your partner's upset with you. It's incredible. Love based on self-sufficiency, optimizing communication. Your partner is a mirror. They're always a mirror. Okay. Stop dating your parents. I love that title. Yeah, that's that thing I was talking about when you meet somebody and they're really hot. The reason they feel hot is you think you can change them and get the love you didn't get from your parents because they have the attributes, some of the attributes of your parents. And so that's what makes it so compellingly attractive because you think you can fix it. Good luck. So attracting an ideal partner or allowing your partner to be ideal if you're already in a relationship. How to get over heartbreak. Most everybody has some of those, even from the past. That tends to linger on. And so we're going to go through the process of making sure that all heartbreak energies are completely resolved. Not settling for less than you really want. If you're not in a relationship and you want to be, you want to not settle. And the only way you can do that is to feel so self-sufficient that you don't need anything from anybody. Okay? Waiting before making a long-term commitment, that's very important. You can have both intimacy and independence. Most people can't imagine having the combination of those, but it's very possible. Appreciating the different emotional waves that you and your partner can be in. Having the qualities in yourself that you want in your partner, and financial integrity. So it's not every issue that there is in relationships, but it's a darn good start. And when you transform all of this and get rid of the barriers at the basis of all these, it's phenomenal what kind of impact it has on your relationship. Or if you're not in a relationship, you want to be someone who has the absence of all these barriers so that you attract a similar, evolved kind of partner. Okay? So anyway, there's all the information is here. If you sign up by, what did I say? Yeah, if you sign up right away, you can save $100 by signing up for both classes. And when you click on these, it'll take you to the shopping cart like here. And this has all the, what you do is you just click on add to cart and then you'll be able to sign up for it. So you can sign up for both, you can sign up for one. If you sign up for both, then you save $100. So in any case, I wanted to share this 12 causes model with you because it's one of the most powerful things that I've developed within this work. And it's the answers to the questions of what are the deepest causes of problems in human life. And the reason that's important is that when we resolve an energy, it's got to be the true root cause energy of that problem, or we won't get the result that we want. So now I want you to say, I'm whole and complete. Yeah, with mute off. Good. I'm whole.
I am whole and complete.
And I consistently experience and enjoy this.
and I consistently experience and enjoy this.
Good deal. Cool, huh?
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it.
This is powerful, powerful stuff. So, if you can and you want to do this, let me know. If anybody has like a financial issue, like it's too much at the moment or something, just email me and we'll discuss it and I'll help you work it out. Because if you can do this, I'd love for you to be able to do this. And even if you've taken this course in the past, which I know some of you have, Tonia's done that, several people, Iris has done that, Mark Winsky's done that. There are a number of people who've taken it in the past. It now has this evolved structure with all 5 of these Venn diagrams. So it's a whole new picture. And you'll also get a document that explains in just a couple of paragraphs that when you test and you get one of them with the client, all you have to do is either read it or have your client read it. It's just like a paragraph or 2, and it explains the nature of the conditioning. And then there's a question there right after you do that. It says, can you relate to this? Or can you see how this is at the causal level of your problem? And the person will say, yes. This sets them up to, when we do locate, to be able to find the right energy. And it's all there. You'll get all those documents, everything as part of the class. Okay, very good. So any remaining questions? This has been a lot of fun.
You might have a question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Does somebody have to be enrolled in the extraordinary coaching to take either one of these advanced training modules?
The extraordinary relationships one is something that anybody can take,
Okay,
but the 12 causes of human problems, you really have to know the coaching protocol to get any advantage out of that.
okay. And
So
if you're,
that
and
one, that one requires the freedom practice and the extraordinary coach training as prerequisites. Okay. Now, for the extraordinary relationships one, the ideal thing is that the person also takes the freedom practice, but that they could do that afterwards even.
if you're new to like the program and the freedom practice, is it too early to do something like the 12, like the 2?
The 12 causes, yeah. No, it's okay to take it, but what you're probably going to want to do is after you finish, really getting grounded in the freedom practice, and after you watch the 4 webinars that are the training for the protocol for working with other people, then you can go back and revisit, and you'll have access to it because we're going to record the class and you'll get the recording.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So you can take it. You might not completely get everything because mostly the people who are going to be taking it are going to be people who already know the protocol and have worked with it some and having experience with clients. But that's okay because we're also going to demo as much as possible in every class. Now, be prepared for, we may not cover 2 dynamics in every class, and we might have to add a class or 2 or who knows, 3. I'm totally fine with doing that, and we'll work out the scheduling so it works if we have to.
Okay. If you can't make every class, you could just watch it afterwards.
Absolutely, that's right. That's what, once we record the class, then that part of the class becomes what's called evergreen, meaning it's available all the time, and you can take it at your
Okay.
own, whenever you like, at your own pace.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Trish. Good. Anyone else? Anything? Terrific. Well, congratulations, Veronique, and thanks for volunteering. And now, watch out, world. Here comes Veronique. That's right. So, very good. Very, very good. Okay. So if you want to enroll, just go to that link in the articles menu, the advanced training, scroll down to the bottom, and all the enrollment options are there. And plus the first 10 people who enroll in both courses, okay, are going to get an extra free one-on-one session with me. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. Nice to be connected with all of you again. And look forward to many of you being in the class and are having a great time in really supercharging your coaching so that you just, you get the kind of results you get from this stuff. Man, it's like people tell their friends. All right, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Nice night. We'll see you next time. All the best.
Night, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.